right, so we are recording. This is our second Canvas lab. Today we're going to be focusing on the topics covered in Unit 2. We'll start off, here's the agenda we'll have today. We'll go ahead and do open questions in the beginning. If you have any quick questions, just sit there and ask about anything that was covered in Unit 2. Also, there are some points as far as in the create a module assignment. I want to show you how to do the prerequisites and requirements so you can have a way to control the content of what your students see. For 2.6, create a content page. I want to show you how to display certain files. So if you wanted to post a PDF document or a PowerPoint document or anything else above in your course, I want to show how you can display those properly. And then also I want to talk about the navigation. So those are some of the things that I want to cover today. But before I get into my lecture, does anybody have any questions regarding Unit 2 or Canvas in general?
Yes, I do.
Yes. Okay.
Which is that for our very first assignment to prepare the outline, I found myself resisting one of your instructions and I had to resubmit to get full credit, which was to put the numbers at the beginning, the 2.1, etc. of everything. And now I understand why you were insisting on that, because I make sure I understand this correctly, that although it's not a requirement of Canvas, you are highly recommending that numbering system because it keeps things in alphabetical order for changing dates or something. Is that right?
It has a variety of benefits. Number one, for the student communicating to you, I, as a student, can come into your class and say, Professor Weinrich, I'm having issues with item 1.6. It's an easy way to reference as far as what the assignment actually is.
Okay.
Number two, from a support standpoint, from you contacting me, I've always had an issue with instructors who will sit there and say, hey, Chris, I'm having problems with my Unit 2 quiz. I'm like, okay, that's fine, and I'll go into their course, and then I'll find like 8 Unit 2 quizzes in their course, and I have no idea which one they're referring to. Versus if you labeled the one that you're correctly using right now and sit there and say, hey, Chris, I'm using 2.10. I'm having issues with 2.10. I can look at 2.10 and know that's the one you're actually looking at and ignore all the other ones that might say Unit 2 quiz or however you want to name it. The other reason why I sit here and do this is the reason why I sit here and I enforce these numbers is when you go, for example, let me go to pages here real quickly. Doing the numbers helps you it might not make sense now because you don't have a full complete course.
Right.
6 months down the road, it will make a huge difference. This is my 4th time teaching this course, but this is the 7th time this course has been taught. So as you can sit there and see, we have a large variety of items within this course. And I have another instructor in another course, he's going to be teaching the one starting on Monday. He's been adding content and helping me improve this course as well. So when I sit here and I look at these items, I automatically know where these items belong in my modules. This belongs in Unit 2, this is Unit 2, item number 2, and this is the Canvas lab schedule. Or I can sit there and look through and say, okay, this is this is my 5.3, that's my final project. I know where these things belong. The problem comes down as you sit there and scroll down is now you sit here and see on my screen, I have a lot of content pages here. Then this is, by the way, when I first actually started the course. These items have no numbers here. In my module section, I have no idea where these actually are. So, excuse me. Is that a public? Is somebody in a public area? Okay, looks like they left. All right, that's gone. All right. So to continue from where I left off, a lot of these items were created when I first actually started working in the course.
Okay.
And these items here, I have no idea where they belong. So the time is if I'm going to sit there and try to figure out where these items belong, whether these items are attached to a specific assignment or a specific reading material, item, that's going to be a challenge for me to manage. This is easy to find. This isn't easy. Also, when going through your modules, when creating your modules, let's say if I'm going to go into Unit 2 right here, and I go through and have these items here. Imagine if these weren't numbered, it would be very confusing. Pretend these are not here to realize what units these assignments actually belong to.
Okay.
However, when I'm creating my modules right now, it's a no-brainer. This is module 1. This is module. These are all module 1. It's all in order, and it gives me an idea of. I don't have to sit there and think where these items belong in each module.
Got it.
Yeah, might be hard to manage in the beginning, but later on, it's going to save you so much time and energy in the long run.
Okay, thanks.
Does anybody else have any other questions? Going once, going twice.
Chris, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. I have a mic too. This is Debbie.
Hi, Debbie.
Hi.
Do you have a question?
No, I just want to make sure you can hear me.
Okay, perfect. All right, cool.
I have a really quick question, but I don't want to hog the stage.
No, if nobody else has a question, go ahead and ask.
I think I understand the heavy green bar going down the left-hand side. That means that it has been published. Is that right?
Correct.
Got it.
So, for example, let's go down. You folks haven't started Unit 3. If I want to unpublish an item, I can click on this cloud button here. Or if you wanted to unpublish a module, you would click on that item right here, right next to the plus button, if you could see that on my screen.
And then all the items would stay there, but the green bar would disappear and students would lose access.
So you sit there and see if you're looking at, I don't know if you're looking 3.1 from my screen, publish, the green bar's there, unpublish, the green bar disappears, and it's not published.
Got it.
So this is an important thing to note as an instructor. So when you in a course, and this one's not published, so when on your home screen, if you were to go into your Canvas training sandbox, you would see over in the right-hand corner a button that says unpublished and then published. In Canvas, excuse me, when you publish a course, you can't unpublish it or make it unavailable to the students. Once it's published, it's always published. Now, when a course concludes, so near the end of the fall semester, it will go into a read-only status. So meaning students can't go back after the semester ends and access quiz questions or resubmit assignments. It's only a read-only status. However, if you come, so at the start of your course, if you go ahead and publish, and let's say you weren't ready to publish or anything else, you could go into your modules and you can control and you can unpublish any one of these modules so students won't see them. You can have control over that. So with that being said, if there are no other questions, I want to focus on adding prerequisites and requirements to your modules.
I was confused about those terms because to me a prerequisite is something that you have to do before you start something, and also a requirement is the same thing in the way that I use English. So if those are two different words, I assume they have two different functions in Canvas.
Yes, and I'm going to clarify that right now.
Perfect.
All right, so you're looking at the official course from my instructor view. As you can sit there and see right now, we have for Unit 2, there was a prerequisite listed right here. You needed to do two things. You needed to complete all the items in the Getting Started orientation, and then you needed to complete the Unit 1 Introduction to Canvas module before you can start Unit 2. That's one of the major things that I enforce using the modules because it gives you, the instructor, full ability to control how your students view your content in your course. Now, how do you set your prerequisites? Over here, for the related module, you can click on the actual drop-down gear icon right here, and then you click Edit. Now, also in the beginning, though, the way I had this course before over during the summer and spring semester, I used to have these items locked in the beginning. And so these items would lock and they would unlock on every new module would lock on Friday at 8 a.m. in the morning. And I'm not going to click done for that, but that's when these items would lock. and unlock. I took that off because I wanted to give you folks the ability to be able to work ahead in the course. So that was turned off. But for you, you have the option. You have the option if you wanted to lock modules until a specific date, you could do that as well, and students won't be able to access that content or see anything in that module. Here is where the prerequisites are specified. So for the first one, like I said, I did Unit 1, Introduction to Canvas, and then 2, Getting Started Orientation. So if you wanted to add a new prerequisite, you can click on the Add Prerequisite, and then you would select the actual module. But note, it's only going to list the modules that precede or that are before this current one. So the only 2 that are actually before Unit 2 are the Unit 1, the Getting Started in the Zoom sessions, and that's just for your own reference only. So these are the only 2 ones that are the most important. So now we get into the requirements. Now requirements are what you need to do to complete. You're specifying the requirements needed to complete a specific module. Does that make sense, Jim?
So prerequisites are in fact pre, and requirements are basically post.
Right, post. So right now I have, for my requirements, for Unit 2, students must complete all of these requirements. So for a Unit 1 overview, all I just sit here and say is view the item. So basically all you have to do is view the page. Also, you note that in some of the ones in Unit 1 or in the Getting Started orientation, I actually told you I wanted you to mark, there was a button that I wanted you to mark as done before you could go to the next module or next item in the module. And that item's right here. Now, for your hands-on assignments, so the creating a module, the content page, and the home page, before, I used to say you just needed to submit the assignment. However, since I changed, since I wanted you folks to give the ability to be able to move ahead in the actual course, I sat here and said I needed to score at least a 0 before you can move ahead. Now, why do I say 0? It's because I wanted to be able to give you the opportunity to do, I wanted to at least grade the assignment before you could move on. But I also sat here and said, per my late work policy, that if you miss an assignment and if it's past the due date, you still need to complete it, but you're going to get 0 points for it. So I specified 0. So if I gave you 0, I at least gave you the ability to move on in each assignment. Now, you also have the ability, now at the very start of this actual course, I actually said students must move through requirements in sequential order. That's how it was originally set. However, I came into a problem in the beginning with this format that once everybody in my unit, with the 0.7 outline, or actually the 0.7 outline, I had to grade that one right away before you could move to the next item. And that just was really inconvenient, and there was just not a possibility for me to be able to sit there and do that effectively. So I took this off for this module, for all my modules, so you could go through. It doesn't have to be in sequential order, but you just have to complete all of the items before you can actually move on. Does that make sense, Jim?
Yep.
Perfect. All right, so I noticed here we got 2 questions in the chat. Let me see what the chat has to say real quickly, if I can bring that up. So Alan asked, how do you make the done icon appear like in your course? Okay, I'm assuming I answered that, my Alan. I mentioned, I'm going to put this over here, the mark is done button. That's over here, mark is done. So you could specify that for any module. Now, also notice with the requirements, so with the requirements, and I'm going to go into actual student view here. And this is something you can explain to students. Do you sit there and see, so with students always know, and this is a way to give your students an idea on where they're at in the course. Notice here it says welcome, it says marked done, and there's a green check mark. This item has been viewed right here. There's a check mark, marked done. Note here, there's no mark here. This is where this assignment is overdue. It's past, this icon tells me it's overdue, and I still need to contribute to this page. This item says mark done, it does not say mark. So at any point in time, a student is going to have a clear idea on where they're at or what they need to focus on in the course when they're looking at these modules. So for Unit 1, it's quite evident if this was an actual student, none of these items have been addressed, and all of the related assignments for this student have not been completed because they're all missing. So a student can always get a good idea on where they're at. And as you can see, since this fake student did not complete the requirements for the Getting Started orientation or the Introduction to Canvas module, this is why Unit 2 is unavailable to that student. So if you work around with requirements and stuff with your student, and if a student actually ever says, I can't access said assignment, or I can't read this or contribute to the discussion board, one of the first things should be a red flag to you is make sure that if you set requirements and prerequisites to show the student, hey, did you complete, Unit 1 or whatever in their requirements. So sorry, go ahead.
I have a quick question about that completing thing. When I, as a student in your course, looked ahead and clicked on one of those pages, if I remember right, I went to a page that looked like it had something, but then when I read it, it said, hey, you've got to finish other stuff before you can really see that. And
Correct.
I appreciated the fact that I knew that there was something that was there. Is that the way it really works, or do you have to set it up specially to do that?
No, that's the way it works. So with the way that I have the requirements work, that's the way it's going to happen.
Good.
So can I even, I don't think I can even, I can't even, right now I can't even click on Unit 2. But even with, let's say...
hey, Chris, I have a quick question.
Yes.
Can you, if you don't want students to get graded after the due date, but they still have to do the item, is there a way to make that clear that they're not going to get a grade even though they have to do it to get on to the next unit?
That's what I specifically did. I specifically made it clear. I mean, it's specified in my actual syllabus. I actually put it also in the Getting Started. Don't forget, I specified my late work policy. Points will not be assessed for any required coursework that's submitted past the related due date.
But they still have to do it.
But they still have to do it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So usually if there's some key points that you want to sit here and make relatively clear, I specify this. And also once we get into when we get into Unit 5, I'm going to be talking more about the actual syllabus too. And I kind of use the syllabus section as the law of the land. If you have any doubts or any positions as questions as far as where you're at in the course or what policies are there, you come to this page. So this is where you can establish all your rules in the course as well. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Perfect. So that's the idea as far as modules are concerned, as far as setting up proper requirements and how students can keep track and how you can control that stuff in the actual course. Moving on. Let's talk about content pages. What I want to do, I'm going to get out of the actual course. I'm going to go to just a dummy shell real quick. And I want to show you how to properly display certain files within your course. You have an idea on how to create content pages now. What is it? As I get to the page, go ahead and ask your question about low priority, Jim.
Oh, okay. You recommended that we indent things that have requirements.
For anything that would be graded.
Anything would be, sorry, that's right. Anything that would be graded. And I want to check to make sure that that's your suggestion. It's not a requirement. And also, is there any problem if I indent everything 2 levels? In other words, do I have to indent 1 level then a second, or can I just decide to indent everything 2 levels because I think it makes it visually clearer?
That's just a recommendation. So normally, okay, so when we talk about stuff that I talk about in the course, I'm using the numbers and the context as far as those items. Those are actual requirements.
Okay.
Those indentations and stuff like that, That's a recommendation. So that's some way to visually distinguish. I want to at least instill some way to visually distinguish what are those items that the student just needs to read versus what the work that they actually need to accomplish.
Yes.
And if you feel there's a much better way to achieve that, then go ahead and do that for your course.
Okay.
All right. So first off, before I get started, I want to make sure I actually have a file here to actually work with. And I don't. So if we haven't messed with files, you're going to learn how to upload files real quickly. So I can upload something here. So right now I just need a PDF for me to work with. So I'm in my files section, or my files tab right here. And I'm going to click upload. I'm going to click upload. There we go. I'm going to go into my Canvas folder, and I'm just going to select this Blackboard Canvas migration guide. That's going to be the something that I upload. You do also have the ability to upload zip files. So if you have a large variety of files that you want to upload, you can upload them in one shot, and then Canvas will unpack and open those files up automatically. So it's a really easy way to get a bunch of files up at one time. But for this example, we're just going to go ahead and do one item. So I'm just going to select this file. I'm going to click open and wait till that uploads. There we go. That's uploaded now. Now I'm going to go to the module section. Now, this is one thing with people that use Canvas to supplement their face-to-face course. Automatically, what they do for an actual module is they're going to go ahead and click on the plus button, and they're going to go into the drop-down menu, and they're going to sit there and say File, and then they're just going to automatically do their file. I don't recommend this, and for the nature of this course, and to make it clear, this is a requirement. Do not use the file option here. And I will explain why. And for me to explain why, I'm going to show you how I do it for the actual student. So how I would actually embed a file into my Canvas course, I would create another content page. I'm going to give that a name. I'm going to give it a new name, and I'll just give it an arbitrary number, and then we'll just say BB Migration Guide. Read. You need to read this. Now, a lot of times I'm sure you've heard in past talks when we talk about, you've heard the term content is king. I personally kind of disagree with that to a certain degree. I believe that context is king, especially when we're looking at an online course. With context, in a face-to-face situation, you as the instructor have the ability, it's your job to provide specific context for the student in relation to your course to help them with their educational or career goals. And it's easy for you to stay on track with them because you're in the same space with them. However, there's a problem when it comes to online stuff, because when we work with online content, whether you're an online instructor or you're just using to supplement your on-campus course, you're now separated by this screen, whether it's a mobile device or whether it's a monitor. That's where establishing context is much harder, because now I am based on my own interpretation of the content I see to work in your course. And your job to establish context is much harder. So what a lot of instructors do is they'll just sit there and they'll have a document like this, and it just uploads. And there's no what this document is about. Why does the student need to pay attention to it, or how they need to even access it, what do they need to do to access this content? And in an online course, again, regardless of whether it's a face-to-face or to supplement your on-campus course, a lot of this stuff goes unread. Because as you're sitting there going through, most students might sit there, with you folks, you've had busy days, and, you're dealing with other responsibilities. And by the end of we might not be able to get to the work until the end of the week. And if you just saw something like this, you're not going to remember what was talked about in the Canvas lab that would happen earlier in the week in regards to this document. So the more context you can provide to the student, the better success rate you will have in them interacting with the content that you post online, if that makes sense. So when we talk about context, let me go back to my actual modules here. I'm going to go into the BB4 migrate, or in this migration guide right here, and I'm going to say edit. And there's 3 things when establishing content for the document that you're about to post. You want to talk about what, why, and how. What is the document? Why, as a student, do I need to pay attention to it? And how do I need to access it? So, what is the document? This document covers how to properly migrate content from Blackboard to Canvas. Why do you need to pay attention to it? Please read this document in detail and follow the instructions. Incorrect imports from Blackboard to Canvas can have a direct impact on your final project grade. So here's the why. So now I'm establishing with students, there's a reason for them to pay attention to this document now, because if they don't follow the instructions, and if they import their content from Blackboard to Canvas incorrectly, it can have an impact on their final grade. So now they have a vested interest to actually read this actual content. Now, how do they access it? To access this document, please click on the link title to download a copy to your device, or you can view this directly in Canvas. So there's my context. That's what I'm establishing. I've established the what this document is, how migrate content from Blackboard to Canvas, why they need to pay attention to it, and then the how. So now we need to actually link the actual document. And when we actually link the document here, you're going to start using the content selector a lot more in your actual course content. So in this case, I'm going to click on Files, and then I'm just going to select the Blackboard to Canvas Migration Quick Start Guide. And then as you can see, a link automatically appears here. Now what I want to do is I want to highlight this link. I want this link to actually appear automatically in the course. So the document automatically opens up so a student can begin reading it right away. So I'm going to highlight this link here. And then I'm going to go to the chain link icon right here. It says link to URL. I'm going to click on the link here, and there's a link here that says, or an option here that says auto open the inline preview for this link. I'm going to check that. Then I'm going to click on update link. Once that's completed, my job is done. I can click save. And now the document actually appears and students can begin reading it. They can read this short premise right here. This gives them everything they need to know to set them up properly to be able to read this document. So do you see, let me go back to the module section. Do you see the difference in what it's like to be able to read, to come across these 2 items here, whether it's just a document with no real rhyme or reason or purpose as to why it's here, versus this one that has the actual context to support it? Do you see the distinction? What do you think, Jim?
Yes, I do. I kind of missed a little bit of that. I like the idea that you can put the document right there in the window.
Mm-hmm.
And do they have to click on something in order to get it to appear, or does it appear if they just scroll down far enough?
It appears if they scroll down far enough, and thankfully I didn't write a lot of copy, and to establish your context, you don't really necessarily need to write a lot of copy. As you can see, I just did this in 2 paragraphs, so there's not a lot of scrolling here. Now, here's one thing, and let me go back. So I'm going to do this one more time. Let me go back to that page here, and I will repost it again, because I want to show you a difference here. I'm going to go back and edit, and I will redo that link again. So in the content selector, you can go ahead and click on files, and then you can select the actual file. Then I'm going to say, now for this one right here, I am not going to click on the auto open inline preview for this link. I'm not going to do it for this one.
Oh, it was checking that box that I missed. Okay.
Yeah. Now I will do it for the second one though. So we'll do it for the second one. I'm going to post that link again. And then I want to highlight this. I'm going to click the box. You want to make sure auto open inline preview for this link is checked. And then say update link. I'm going to say save. So as you can see here with this link, this automatically opens. However, with this link up here, it doesn't open. So student would either have to click on the link title. If I click on the link title, it will, if my internet would work there, if you can see down at the bottom left-hand corner of my screen, it downloads a copy there. Or if they want to appear in Canvas, you click that link right there, and then it actually opens. It can minimize the preview. So if you do it in this fashion, this is where that how part comes in. If you do it in this fashion, because if you're going to do multiple documents like this, you might not want to have every single document appear automatically. Usually I just do these for one-offs, especially with the most important ones. So if you have ones that just have the icon here, go through and make it clear that for, for this one, these instructions apply to this item right here. Now for this one where the auto open wasn't assigned, I say to access this document, please click on the link title to download a copy to your device. Or click on the page icon to the right of the title to view this directly in Canvas. Save. So once I save that now I have the title. To access the document, please click on the link title to download a copy of your device, or click on the page icon to the right of the title, page icon to download. So they actually do that. If you don't have this here, I guarantee that they'll miss this automatically. And so that's why I've normally encouraged, if you're doing one-off documents, is just have it here, because there's no reason for a student, they see it, they can click on it, and they can review it right away. Does that answer your question, Jim?
Yep.
Perfect. Also, I recommend if any one of you do actual PowerPoints and everything else, before you don't upload PowerPoints to Canvas, if you can, if they just have images and straight text, save them as PDFs. Now, granted, even with PowerPoints, it would display in Canvas automatically. But if a student downloads that document or that PowerPoint to their computer, and if they're on a Mac and they don't have access to Office, you can't guarantee it might not open in the way that you wanted them to see it on their device. PDF documents are universal. They'll open on a Mac, they'll open on a PC, and they'll even open up on your iPhone or Android device. So, for example, if I'm viewing Canvas, or if I'm viewing this course if I'm taking Jim's course and I'm looking at it on a mobile device and he wants me to read a PDF or a document there's no guarantee that I would be able to download that PowerPoint onto my iPhone and be able to read it effectively. Versus whether it's a PDF, doesn't matter. I can download it on my iPhone and I'd be able to read it, no problem. There's no excuse as far as those things are concerned. One more thing about Pages, and I want to make sure you understand about the content selector here. So right here we talked about files. This tab is about images. And now when we actually look at links, I want to pay attention to links here. So going back to my actual course, let me go back to my course. Let me just pick a random page here. I'm gonna click this page edit right here. Actually, I'm just gonna start a new one here. So let's do this. I'm going to go into the Zoom sessions here. I'm going to pretend to create a new page here. So assignment, and I'm going to actually do this because this presentation is going to go up here anyway. So this would be Z3, unit 2, Canvas Lab. So there's my new page for the Zoom sessions. I'm going to click on this link here. Now, one thing that I notice with what instructors are doing when I'm seeing you're creating your announcements, you're creating your content and everything else, let's pay attention and start making more usage out of these links. So as we talk about the links, the first thing you see here is the pages here. And you can sit here and see these are all the pages I've created. And Jim, here's another reason, if you wanted another reason as to why I sit here and do the numbering conventions.
I got it.
Is I can sit here now. I know whatever page. If I sit here, it's easy for me to pick whatever page I want to be able to link. If I wanted to link to this item right here, so if I wanted to sit there and say, you know what, for this, I want you to create. I want you to go to the 2.9 create homepage button. Boom, I can link that right there, and it's really easy. Versus when I scroll all the way down to the bottom and I get into these items here, I have no idea what these pages are. So, pages. These are pages. These are all the content items that you've actually selected. Assignments, these are assignments that you've actually created. Quizzes, these are quizzes here. You could link to specific announcements in a content page, and granted, this content selector is universal. It's in your assignments, it's in your discussions. You can use this in anywhere where you're creating content that has a rich content editor. So you have your discussions, you have your modules, and you have your course navigation. So anything that's listed in the left course menu. So a lot of times when I'm sitting here and I'm reading content, I might sit here and I see an announcement where it says, please, if I could type, please click view the syllabus by clicking on the syllabus link in the left menu. You do something like that, and that's a reasonable direction to be able to sit there and go through. But what I'd much rather see is please view the, and then I would sit there and say instead of syllabus, I could sit there and scroll down over here into my course navigation and then go ahead and click on course syllabus. And that's automatically going to create a link to the course syllabus section. And make sure you read the course summary schedule. Or if you wanted to talk about viewing grades, you can view your grades for the midterm, something like that. Or if I wanted to point to an actual announcement, make sure you read the, and I'm not going to say the title, I'm just going to sit there and say the announcement where, you know, I want to make sure the clarification on the 2.5 assignment, that's there. So when I save these items here, instead of telling students where they need to go, I have the links automatically where they can click on and go to the course syllabus. They can go to their grades, view their grades if they want to. It's just going to go to my grade book, and then they can view the actual, and they can actually go to the actual announcement. So if you make any reference for a student to go to anywhere in their actual course, instead of telling them where to go ahead and provide them those links. And you can link to anything within your course using the content selector right here under the link section. Did that make sense? Cool.
Yep, that makes sense.
Perfect. Awesome. I'm going to cancel that. Let's see where we're at right now. So at the modules, we talked about content pages. Oh, we want to talk about home pages. So for the home page, for the variety of pages that you actually do, and I know some of you chose the module, some of you chose pages as front page. I want to make sure that for the actual homepage, you understand that the recent announcements and how to get those to appear on your homepage, regardless of the homepage that you actually chose. So to make sure your recent announcements display on your actual homepage, I want you to click on, in your course menu, click on Settings. Scroll all the way down to the bottom and click on More Options. Make sure that Show Recent Announcements on Course Homepage is selected. So if it's checked, you want to make sure that if it's unchecked, you want to make sure it's checked. And then it's you have the option of displaying how many announcements you want to display. If you want to display 15, you're going to display 15. I think 3 is a good number to have your announcements display. So make sure that's set in your actual course. That is going to be a requirement for your final project, that your announcements display on your homepage correctly. Update course details. Now, one of the things, some of you folks actually chose the modules page as your course homepage. So if I were to actually go to, I'm in my template now, in my fig template. So you chose this. So I'm on my homepage. This is what you actually see, versus going into the actual course. This is what you actually see here. Now, personally, I like the pages as front page because I have a way to control this content in a manner that I see fit for students. So I can keep updating this page in a manner, any which way that I want if I feel it's important to them, and point to them to any link or any other important resource that I have. And that's the first thing that they're going to see. However, with this one, when you're looking at your getting started orientation, or when you're actually doing your actual module, students don't actually see that. So when you're actually working, and if you chose the modules item as your homepage, which is perfectly fine, just make sure that the first item here in your item is laid out specifically clear. You know, make sure getting started, change the title to read here first or something like that, and have this be the starting point for students on how to get started in your actual course. Also, with your actual modules, and this is for the final project, for a lot of you did the getting started orientation, which is fine, and you're welcome, would be a great overview for this one as an introduction. What I would like to see in your actual course modules, or like your subject modules where students are actually going to do work, I'd like to see an overview page like this one. So as a module page, you have an overview. So it has an overview, and it talks about what the module will actually cover. So Unit 1, this unit focuses on how Canvas works from both the student view and the instructor view. You'll learn the basics on how Canvas works. And then if you have student learning objectives, participants will be able to do X, Y, and Z. You can include those there. And to meet the objectives of this lesson, these are the objectives here. Now, I believe I created an actual template that you could take advantage of. And I'm going to see if I can find that real quickly. So I'm going to go to the Canvas Commons. And you can take note of this as well if you want to use this for your course. So real quickly, I don't remember if I talked to you about the Canvas Commons. Canvas Commons is a repository where faculty, staff, people all over the world that are actually using Canvas can share courses, modules, assignments, quizzes, discussions, any piece of content from your course that you feel is relevant. This is a great tool for instructors that want to share maybe content for a new adjunct instructor that might be taking over your course if you're going on sabbatical for some reason or another, because in the past we've gotten a lot of requests from faculty members wanting to share their Blackboard course with another instructor or have them import that course content into their container, and it's been a pain in the butt. This makes it really easy here in the Canvas Commons. So what we're going to do here in the Commons is we're going to look for a specific overview template that you could use in your course for your modules. So in the Commons here, right in the search bar, I'm going to type in my last name, Rodgers. I'm going to hit enter. Now, let me see here. I'm trying to figure, oh, module overview template. This is the one you want to actually sit here and see. Module overview template. You go ahead and click on this. And then in the right-hand side right here, you want to go ahead and scroll down and then select the course. I'm going to select this course right here, and then I can say import to course. And so when I go into my courses right now, so this, what this is an actual content page. And so when I go back into my template course, I can go to my pages section and I can see this overview template. This is the template here. Now, mind you, I have to correct one thing here. So, Jim, I want you to point out. I want to point out with this template, this link here is broken here. This is another reason why I sit here and go through this too. So you'd have to correct this link to go to the next item in your module. Otherwise, or you can actually remove it as well.
Okay.
So if I can remove that, if I click on the remove link, it'll remove that as well. But you can use this template for your actual modules in itself. So what you would do here to actually use this effectively, I'm going to go ahead and click, I'm going to save this. I'm going to go back to the pages area. What I would actually do here, I would keep this. This is the template. I'm not going to touch this one. But you can duplicate pages for different items in your course. So if this was for my Unit 1 module, I can click on this arrow right here, and then I could just say duplicate. And now I'm going to go ahead and click here, and I'm going to edit this, and I will say, you know, Unit 1 overview. I'll pretend that I filled it out completely. View all pages again, and then I'm going to duplicate this again, and then I can just continue on. And now also to a shortcut, if I just want to change the title, I can just click on edit here, and then I could say Unit 2. And this is a real way, and this is a way for me to be able to sit here and cover all of these things for all these modules. So I can say duplicate again and again, edit, and then just say Unit 3. You only need 2 for your modules. You know, you only need 2 for your course modules here. And if you're only doing like a getting started page and then an actual unit, that one unit that's focused on specific work, you only need 1 overview page. So you'll always have this overview template as a background. That's one that's fresh, that's clean, that you can always turn to. And then you can always duplicate that later on for whatever content that you actually need to focus on. And then what I would actually do is I would actually go into my modules, and then I could add this overview page. I can click on that plus button here, and I can click on content page, and then I could say Unit 1 overview, and then add that, and then move that up. Make sure if you have any questions, please let me know, because this is going to be one of the requirements for the actual final project. They have some form of overview to inform the students, again, to establish context, what the module is about, any learning objectives, and what do they need to do to actually meet the requirements of this module. Does that make sense? Cool.
Yes.
Perfect.
Chris, I have a quick question.
Yes.
Backing up just a little bit on the content pages, when you were selecting on the right-hand side all of the choices, would you suggest when we're building this, uploading all the files first?
Yes.
And then coming in and then building it?
Yes.
Because then it'll all be there? Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Make sure to organization can make sure you have this organized in a real fast. It's when you start doing this course and it gets over time, you know, when you're building the course, a lot of instructors will just start uploading stuff. And that's what I actually did here too. And I'm personally not too happy with how I have my files organized here. I would do it in a different way. But when you get down to like 6 months down the road, like I am right now, trying to sit here and work through and figuring out how to reorganize a lot of these items here would actually be a pain. So make sure you have like an idea of your folder structure, and then upload all your content there and get that resolved first. And if you have that organizational system down, it's going to save you a lot more time near the end when you get into my point where I've been working with this course for well over a year now.
Okay. And it's my understanding, privately, we can find a way to be able to move the My Blackboard content over. Uh-oh, I just lost your audio.
I think I muted myself.
Yeah, now you're back. Oh, no, you're muted.
Am I back now?
Yeah.
Okay. Press the wrong button. In Unit 5, we talk about migration from Blackboard
Gotcha.
to Canvas.
Okay, cool. I'll be patient. Thank you.
Perfect. Let's see, what else do I want to cover here? We talked about the homepage. Oh, let's talk about navigation. Navigation, very important. This is a requirement. So with the navigation, it is not an assignment, but I encourage you to read this on your own. There is a PDF document here. So as again, this is another example of how to properly display, a document here. I talk about, here's my what and why, and make sure you read this guide because it's a requirement for your final project. This is a document here on the requirements for an effective navigational item. And I'm going to go over this item right now on how to make this work for your course. This is important for everyone, and especially anyone that's watching this at a later time. So, as you sit here and see with this course, when I go into Student View, in Student View, there are base items, the only base items that you need to establish. And I'm going to turn one thing off here. There's one item here that I only want to focus on the base requirements here. So, chat attendance. So I suggest as I get this ready, you get out a pencil. Hopefully you have a pencil and a piece of paper here. For your course, the base items that you only need to have in your navigation are home, announcements, syllabus, modules, and grades. People I even leave arbitrarily here as well. Then that's up to you. But I'm including in here, and that's not even a necessity here. So, but these are the base items here that I want to that the only things you need for a successful course. And as you can see, as you've been taking this course, these are the only things that you needed, and you've done just fine. Now, here's the important part that I want to make clear on as far as your final project is concerned. There are 4 items that I do not want to see in your navigation. That's assignments, pages, files, and discussions. As I stated before, all coursework that you have is conducted through the modules section, just like you've been doing in my course right now. Files, pages, assignments, and discussions, those items, let me just explain it this way. So when we initially we had a few pilot instructors at the start of the spring semester, because when we first taught this course, we taught it back in November of last year, and there was a couple instructors that actually taught in spring. They had all of these items open. And the problem is that the more points of entry that students had to your course content confused them immensely. And it's been a lot easier for students just to go to the modules section and focus on your work. Excuse me. We want to make clear, and the major problem with Blackboard, because with Blackboard, their course menu, you could add items, you could customize, you could do anything you wanted in the world to it. And that was a huge problem. While it gave the individual instructor freedom to design their course as they see fit, problem is Jim has a course menu designed in his course that's specific, that's going to be different from Jeanette's, that's going to be different from Deborah's, Art's, and Alan's. And so I, as a student, each time I'm going into a course with Blackboard, and once I feel like I'm adjusted and I understand what Blackboard is in Jim's course, and then I go into Jeanette's course and it's something totally, completely different, that has been a huge, this is one of the things that has had a huge effect on online retention rates. I get complaints from students all the time in the tech mall here. I talk with students down here. They can't stand Blackboard because they spend more time trying to learn how to use Blackboard and navigate each course versus actually focusing on your course content. And that's what we want to avoid here with Canvas. We want students to focus more on the course content and not worry about how to navigate the Canvas course. So that's why I say discussions, assignments, pages, files, those items, turn off. Those are for your own personal use. Because can you imagine as an instructor, if I sat here and I had the pages file available to you, and that was supposed to be like your required reading. If you were to go into the course right now and then click on pages, and first off, you see this, you have no idea what you actually do. You see the home page actually again. But if you were to click on the View All Pages button and you'd see this, you'd be totally overwhelmed. You would have no idea on where to go and everything else. These items are, pages, assignments, discussions, files. That stuff is for like your own inter-office stuff. And then all the coursework goes into the actual module. So I want to show you, let me correct my module real quick. I'm going to go into my template course right now. And I'm going to fix this course menu right here. So again, all of these items here, what I'm about to go over is listed in item 2.8, Navigation Made Easy. So don't feel pressured to take notes. If you need to, you can always just refer to this document and it'll give you a detailed overview as for what I'm about to talk about right now. So to modify your navigation, you click on Settings. Then you click on, in the tabs here, you click on Navigation. The top box is what students see. This is what students see. So every single item here is available. The bottom box is what students do not see. And what you see here right now is a lot of third-party LTIs from different people. So if you wanted to use NetTutor for your course, give students ability to have access to online tutoring, you could just drag this up to the top if you wanted to. Pearson, MyLab, and Mastering, if you use Pearson's products, you can just drag this item up here. Same with Cengage, same with McGraw. These items are more than willing. If you use any of these items here, you're more than welcome to use those items. However, for these items here, there's a lot of things that we do not want to establish or have students to have access to. So to do that, I'm just going to go ahead and take this chat item. I'm just going to drag it down. Attendance, collaborations, conferences, quizzes, outcomes, files, pages, people. Again, that's arbitrary, but I'm going to leave that off on this one for this example. And then discussions. And then also assignments. The order should be home, announcements. You want them to read the syllabus, then they do their modules, and then the final thing should be their grades. And this would be the base of all you would need for a student to be successful in the course. Now, granted, there's more things as you become more efficient in Canvas that you're more than welcome to try out. So if you wanted to actually use chat, you could use the chat feature if you wanted to do online chat in your course, or if you wanted to do conferences, or if you're using this to supplement your face-to-face course, you could put the attendance here as well. Those items I don't have a problem with. The ones that I have an issue with are assignments, discussions, pages, and files. Those items stay off the course menu for students. To save this item, I'm going to scroll all the way down to the bottom and then click the Save button. And then you notice here, these are my items right here. And you notice announcements, while it's here, it's grayed out and it's not showing. If I went and go to Student View, you wouldn't see anything right now. All you see is home, syllabus, grades. And the reason why is there's no content in the actual announcement section. That's why you're not seeing it. And then in this module here, my modules are not published. So if I were to, you can see here by the cloud items here, they're not published so students can't see them. But if I was to publish these items right now and then go back to Student View, now you see there and see there's the modules here in the course, how that actually works. Any questions on that? Is there anything anybody wants me to go over that? Because that navigation is going to be very important for your final project. Nope. Okay. One thing that I want to go through, and there was one debate that I was having with an instructor as far as items. And this was a thing that was an issue in the last course as well. One of the common things that an instructor would do is if they had an item in your outline, in your course outline, if you had an item that was like 0.welcome read, that's the page icon, that's a content page. So as we've instructed, I talked about going through, adding an assignment, and then saying adding a content page. That's all it's just an item that a student needs to read. There's no grade or anything attached to it. However, some instructors, either by no fault of their own, they would just go ahead and automatically, when you actually click on a new module button for the first time, it's going to default to an add assignment. And then they would create an assignment that said 1.8 lab review read. And then they would click on this, and then they would just say edit and make sure it's 0 points. And then they would publish this. Some instructors did that because one, either they, and this is why I'm referencing, I made this reference in my 2.5 in my announcements here. I'm kind of going back and going over this 2.5 clarification on announcements and why I sit here and said that. For any content items that are labeled read, you will need to create a content page. Discussions are regular discussions items, assignments are assignments, quizzes are quizzes. So the instructor would actually do, as I mentioned, the instructor would read item, they would either select an assignment because they didn't understand that they needed to actually do a content page, or they select an assignment because it actually goes through, and in the syllabus section, it will actually give the deadline date right here, and I didn't select it. So actually, let me go back to this module section. Some instructors actually like doing it as an assignment because they can sit there and specify a deadline date for this, that they want students to read this by. So when you actually go into the syllabus section, you'd see September, you'd see, okay, one lab review, this is a read item that you need to read by September 28th, even though it has no grades. I don't recommend doing it in this fashion. If you have a read item, leave it as read. Several reasons why. Number one, it gets confusing with students as far as what's an assignment and what's an item that they just need to read, because it's going to get confusing when they sit there and see the graded assignments with this same icon versus this one that's just read. And then also, when we get into assignments itself, in Unit 4, Module 4, we're going to be talking more about assignments. And as we go through, I'm going to go back to my real course right now, and we get into assignments and you start creating groups and you start getting involved in weighting grades, because this course is weighted. So as you can see, all my hands-on assignments are worth 20%. My discussions are worth 20%. Quizzes are worth 10. Final projects are worth 50. If this is organized poorly, and plus if you have a ton of assignments in here that are just read-only items that have 0 points, it can also have an impact on your grading and how you grade in your course. So as a requirement, to make it clear here, make sure that any item that's read-only is specified as a content page and not an assignment. That is a requirement for the actual duration of this course, and it will be marked off on your final project. After this course, if you feel like that's something you want to do, that's more power to you. You can choose what you want to do, but for the duration of this course, make sure you stick to the relative items. Read is a content page, assignment's assignment, discussion's a discussion, quiz is a quiz. Does that make sense? Cool. We are coming up 11:10. Let me see if there's anything else I wanted to cover here. So we talked about items regarding modules. We talked about key information with content pages. Talked about the home page, navigation. I don't spend a lot of time on this one, but I've gotten a lot of questions in the past on how to create these buttons here on the top. If this is also relevant if you chose the pages as front page as your home page. Instructors have wanted to create these buttons in their course. This is by no means a requirement, and this does not have any impact on your final project. But if you wanted to learn how to create those buttons, there is a tutorial 2.9, creating homepage buttons. You can read this PDF on your own. So again, this is purely optional. This is not a requirement, and on the scope of this course, and you could do this maybe even after the course is done. So I would at least recommend downloading this document for your own personal use, but it's no impact on the course. It's just there for your own reference. But definitely read the Navigation Made Easy item right here. Unit 3, let me just give you in. Okay, you had a question, Jim?
Yes. Let me make sure that can you hear me? Yes.
Yeah, I can hear you.
You said that you don't want to have a link on the left. You don't want us to show to the students the link on the left that would say discussions. But I noticed that you do have a green button there that does say discussions. So what is it that's different about those two situations where you recommend it in one place but not in another?
Usually I do it in this area right here, and yeah, and that's a good point here. So the distinction is where I sat there and said discussions. Here's a debate that I've had with this one, and I had it with another instructor. Before, I used to sit here and say with discussions, and let me put this back up here. I used to leave it here. But I had another instructor debate with me on this. If I'm going to sit here and say, all coursework needs to be in the modules, it needs to be in the modules. I used to leave discussions here because if I'm working through, and I thought about this as myself, if I'm working through an actual course, so let's say I'm working on Unit 2 and everything else, and I know I need to get to a point where I need to work on this graded discussion, okay? I don't want to sit here and go through the modules and then just go and then try to find this or graded discussions. Or by the time I get to Unit 3 or 4 later down in my modules, go through and try to sort through this stuff. I would much rather go through the discussion section where it's a shorter list and I can easily find what I need to focus on here. However, it goes against what I've talked about as far as everything being in the module section, finding one place, and how it can get confusing to find. You want to limit the number of points of entry here for the discussions. So that's why I sat here and I agreed with what the instructor told me and I took it off. So on that one, I will sit there and say that if you plan on having discussions in your course, I will go ahead and let this one go as far as here is concerned, because that's room for debate. But the ones I will stay true to are assignments, files, assignments, quizzes, and files. That's what I'll stick to. However, I will leave the discussions off. So why do I have the button here on the actual one right here? Number one, I leave these buttons here for the key parts of the actual course because on a mobile device, this is more of a mobile device issue, Jim.
Okay.
When I open, if you open your course on an iPhone or an Android tablet or anything else, you don't see the course menu. All you see, and this is like, you'd either see the module section if that's what an instructor actually does. But if you chose a pages as front page, this page, this whole entire page right here is what appears. That's the first thing a student sees.
Okay.
So it's a lot easier for me to be able to sit there and include this, and then you can sit there and click on these items here. So this is more for mobile than anything else. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it's interesting that in my Blackboard course for quizzes, I haven't with the equivalent of a quizzes link, and all that you get when you click on it is to say quizzes are done through the module. The first words are not here, and then I say, you know, the quizzes are integrated into the module, so please go through the modules.
Say that again.
I've had students say, well, where are the quizzes? Where are the quizzes? So I put in a button that says quizzes.
Right.
And they click on it, they go to a page where the first two words on the page are not here, And
Mm-hmm.
then the text says, quizzes are not here. They are integrated into the individual modules.
Mm-hmm.
So although technically speaking, that would violate your, I don't need to do this in Canvas. So you don't, but if technically speaking, that violates your rule of don't put something that says quizzes. But I obviously sympathize, I agree with your general feeling that quizzes should be accessed in the normal course of doing the course. And they should go through each of the modules where each of the quizzes is in its right place.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree. Yeah. So, were you? You were asking me a question, or is that just an opinion?
Well, that was the question.
Okay, forgive me. Say that one more time.
It's just that there are certain things you want us to not have on the left-hand side, like you're pointing at modules right now. You don't
Right.
want to have pages accessible, which makes perfect sense because you would be confronted with a list of all the pages that you can access, the student can access at that time.
Right.
And even if they're well organized, you don't want them to jump to any arbitrary page.
Right.
So, well, for example, in Blackboard, there's 6 assignments, kind of like homework assignments that are kind of big deals rather than just a 5-minute thing.
Right.
And those I call assignments.
Right.
And they are introduced in the normal course of events as the student works through the course. However, I also have a button on the left that says assignments, so they can go to that page and see all of these homework assignments. Since they're a bit of a bigger deal, I figure it's okay for them to get a little bit of a head start on them if they want. However, with something else, with quizzes in particular, even though I have a button that says quizzes, that button basically goes to a dummy page that says, you're not going to find any quizzes here. And that basically it tells them why you have to access the quizzes by going through the course in a normal sequence.
I would like to see how that's related in Blackboard. I don't see how that would be needed in Canvas.
Right. So I'm just kind of like figuring out why I don't need this in Canvas and I don't need to have double routes to things. Double pathways of access.
Yeah, you don't need to because you can put everything in the modules section.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the quizzes is, all that stuff is handled in order too. Especially if you chose to do something like this when you go through your requirements and if you said their students must move requirements in sequential order. If you did submit assignments here, they could move this and they would come across it and there wouldn't be any confusion there.
Yeah.
So it would be a lot easier in that fashion. Does that make sense?
To me, it makes sense. Yes.
Okay. Okay. All right. 1 second here. All right, so real quickly, we're almost done here. So for me to close shop here, I want to preface you and make clear. So one of the important things here is we're going to be creating a calendar item for Unit 3. I want to make clear with the calendar items, this is there's 2 things here I want to make clear on. Realize, and I stated this before in the orientation, this is a calendar section, but each course has its own calendar. Notice right now that I'm working in, if you look at my right-hand side here on the mirror here, I said CTF2, that's for the next course that's starting next week. But typically, if I were to work in your course, or in the course we're on right now, this is the actual course right here. So when you're going through your course, and before you start doing your assignment for the calendar, make sure that the Introduction to Teaching with Canvas course is turned on, and then just your sandbox is turned on. If you had multiple items turned on here, and when I go and create an actual event, you have a calendar here, and then you have all these events here, or these different courses here. And this is, instructors have chosen, they don't understand this part, and they've always chosen the wrong calendar because they don't understand that each course has its own calendar. So to make things easy for you, before you do that calendar assignment, check off these boxes right here and just leave the CTF1 and then the Canvas training one. And then you have here, say, create a new event. Now you only have 2 courses to choose from. And make sure that when you create your event, you're selecting your GC Canvas training sandbox for this assignment. And then the last thing I would sit there and say is for edit event, one of the requirements for this assignment is to go into click more options and add context for this item. Remember, when we talk about the 3 things here, what, why, and how. So if Jim, you're going to sit here and do office hours, we're going to talk about offices. What? We're going to talk about office hours to talk about specific items here. How, why might be an option to give you an opportunity to discuss things that might be in class or talk about other issues that might affect your performance in the class. And then how do I access it? Do I schedule an appointment with Jim? Do I send him an email? What do I need to bring? Those things, I want to have some context in here for a calendar event before you actually create it. Don't just sit here and say the event title is office hours and then give a date and time. Make sure you provide some context on this event to give more information for your actual students. So that's the one thing I wanted to actually prepare you for. And that's about it. If there are no other questions, we are currently at 11:22. I think I've covered pretty much everything I want to cover for this unit.
I have a question, but I don't know if it's relevant to everybody else, so I can wait.
What? No, I mean, if nobody else answers, go ahead.
In terms of emphasizing things, this is a question I asked at another school, and it's an innocent question. And after I asked it, I got a lecture about the Americans with Disabilities Act.
Okay.
And I rephrased the question more politely, and I still got an answer relating to the ADA.
Okay.
And all I want is an answer to the question, is it possible in the list of modules that you're showing about indenting and so on and so forth,
Yeah.
can you use different colors, or is it always going to be black and white?
It's going to be black and white. That is an ADA issue because they're talking about color. One of the major issues too, where we had with colorblind, and people would do fancy stuff in their Blackboard courses, but we have to consider people who are colorblind.
Okay, so then let's make this an ADA question, which is there, we're constantly told outside of an ADA context that we should try to reach students who are visual learners and those that are words learners and so on and so forth. So in Blackboard, I sometimes say, okay, for this assignment, you have to submit a file and you have to answer some questions.
Right.
And those in Blackboard are always 2 different mechanisms. So I say, to submit the file, click the red link, quote, submit file here, and I have it in red. For the answering the questions, click the orange link, quote, answer questions, unquote. So my opinion on that is that because I have the different words, someone who can't detect the difference between red and orange will still know which link to click and will not be at any additional disadvantage from the fact that they are colorblind in that way. Whereas for those who are color sighted, the orange and the red are really helpful to them in terms of making sure that they're ready, they know what to do next, what's going to come next when they click on that link. And this is a course-wide style, so to speak. So it makes the students feel more relaxed and able to handle it more efficiently. So obviously, if ADA requires that I put everything in black and white, I'll put everything in black and white. But I do want ways, your method of emphasizing that something is graded is to indent it. Visually speaking, at the moment, I might change my mind. At the moment, I feel I want to double indent it because single indenting, at least in my eyes, doesn't highlight it enough. But I'm just wondering, are there other ways to emphasize things that would be ADA compliant without being, let's say, ADA over-constrained? I don't know if that's the right word.
Well, I mean, when we're talking about indentions here, there's a limited options here. You can't really do anything colorful. I mean, the only thing, if you wanted to sit there more emphasis, I do a lot of things in caps lock. I mean, I emphasize a lot of things in capital letters. I'm not yelling, so to speak, as what the
Yeah.
traditional thing is, but my emphasis is that. But when in the context of what you're talking about here, as far as the modules here and as far as indenting, there's no color. I can't do any other color options or anything else right here.
Okay.
But in the pages area, then you have, I mean, when we're actually going through pages and what you do here, that's a totally different story. And that applies more with what your orange and red links and everything else. What I recommend doing, and I'm trying to get the chat thing to come up, and I can't get it to come up right now. It's not coming up properly. I'm going to say this online, and I will post it in an announcement in actual course. To get a definitive answer on your question, I would suggest contacting Will Pines. He's our alternative media specialist, and he is the master. He's the one that knows everything and all the ins and outs as far as accessibility is concerned, and I can guarantee he can give you a definitive answer.
Okay.
His phone number is 644-7852.
Okay.
Email address is will, W-I-L-L, .pines, P-I-N-E-S, @gccct.edu. And again, like I said, in the announcements, by the end of the day, I'll have his contact information up. And I guarantee you he will be able to answer this question.
Okay.
Perfect. All right, if that is all, I thank you folks for coming. As soon as, like I said, as soon as you complete your graded items, I graded everything that's been turned in thus far. So if you've completed all your work, you can go ahead and start on Unit 3. Otherwise, I'll talk to you later, and you can always message me via the conversations inbox if you have any more questions. And by the end of the day, by 6 o'clock, this recording will be posted online, so you can review it at your own leisure if you want to go over anything that we talked about today.
Thanks, Chris.
Have a good day.